And Neely, the Subway Strangler guy, he got off scot-free. Lots happened. Lots of moving parts in the world. So yeah. Oh, sorry, the alleged CEO killer guy. He hasn't been convicted yet. We don't know for sure. But yeah, there's a lot of craziness going on in the world. How are you?
Good, good. I saw some of that craziness. I'm against people shooting CEOs.
Are you a CEO?
I'm not. But obviously, there are issues with the healthcare system, but that's a separate conversation. People should voice their opinions with free speech and write to the legislators, and pass laws if they want to change that, not kill people.
Based, but fair. No, I'm with you on this. I agree with you on this. Um, but you're here today. We can talk a little bit about all that other stuff, and I'm open to it. But I'm here. I'm having you on today because you have a book coming out. Tell us about it.
Yeah, so I've been working for the past over a year now on The People of Gamergate. It's a multi-volume series of books exploring the Gamergate controversy and movement from the people, from as told by the people involved on both sides. The Kickstarter for this just launched today, actually. I've gotten over $700 in donations so far, and the goal is 6,000, so I'm hoping to hit that. And I'm really excited to be here to talk about it. And we talked about it a little bit before. But yeah, we we talked about Gamergate in the past. You've had some spicy culture war streams in the past. I hate to disappoint everyone, but my perspective is that Gamergate was not about the culture war, but rather about ethics in games journalism. Though it plays into the culture war to some extent that I think it helped spark the what we consider like the online version of the culture war to some extent.
In what ways? So you say that it wasn't about it, but that it was helped spark it. Can you elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, so I believe that the people involved with Gamergate, on the pro Gamergate side, I guess you'd say the people who are like the quote unquote activists involved, I think that they have like the right to define what their movement was about. I think that that's sort of what we would grant to any other movement like Black Lives Matter, Occupy Wall Street, or something like that. That the people involved get to say what it was about. I think the people involved, overwhelmingly, there were different factions, but I think overwhelmingly the people involved were involved because of ethics in games journalism. That was the thing that everybody involved agrees on. Though there are people involved who got involved for other reasons too. The two biggest other camps would be like this artistic freedom camp and this anti-censorship camp. Though there was also, I believe, this hasn't shown up in the data just yet, but I think it will in the end. There is also like an anti-SJW camp as well, and yeah, so I think that GamerGate isn't the culture war. I think that it was moving for ethics in games journalism, but I think that it helped spark it because of the backlash to it. In part because there were people involved with GamerGate who wanted to take it in that direction, like Internet Aristocrat, I believe, wanted to push more in that direction, and so did Kraut, who I interviewed. You know Kraut, the YouTuber.
I'm familiar. Yes.
Yeah, he wanted to take it in more of a anti-SJW direction because he came from the atheism community. So there's people like that, but for the majority of the people involved, it wasn't about the culture war. But I think the way people responded to it with the Gamers Are Dead articles, with this sort of overzealous, I would say, push towards
Sure.
censorship, that they helped spark a culture war by shutting down conversations that should have happened.
But much in the same way that there is a death of the author, right? That regardless of what the author's intent was for a thing, they what their book or they write or their essay is actually about is not up to the control of the author. The author doesn't get to decide what their book is about. The reader gets to decide what their book is about. It's a concept, the death of the author, right? So would that not also apply to Gamergate? So regardless of what the people in the camps think it was about, um, I think the obvious effect that we can see from the outside, right, is the effect it has had on the culture war. So regardless of the intent of the people involved, it obviously seems to have been weaponized by people on both sides of the cultural war in order to do their thing. No?
Yeah, I agree. I think it has been. Though I do think that I think unfortunately the way a lot of people talk about Gamergate is almost exclusively through the culture war lens, which I think isn't really fair to like the people who were involved with the movement themselves to leave out the other aspects. and only focus on like the culture war angle. But I think that's part
So
of it.
tell
Sure, that's
yeah, tell me a little bit about like so okay, look. My audience is going like Gamergate. We know all about Gamergate. What why should someone read your book? Why should anyone care what you have to say on this?
well, because I think this is a topic that's been like widely misrepresented. I think an area where you and I probably both agree is that right now we live in an era where there's a crisis in trust, and trust in society and institutions. I think part of the reason for that trust is because of failures that institutions have done. In this case, in the case of Gamergate, it's failures relating to yes, the games press, but also with more the mainstream media coverage of it. How we've almost created this, in my view, I think fake history of how like this army of online misogynists tried to like drive women from their homes because they couldn't stand women playing video games and they wanted their sexy their sexy boobed characters. Um, I think this narrative's not true, and I think that as long as this narrative remains to be promoted in the mainstream press, that we're going to continue to see a decline in trust in that institution. And that's not just Gamergate. I think that Gamergate's impact on the world overall is quite small, but I think that Gamergate is like one piece. To quote James Desborough, he's the author of Inside Gamergate. I've interviewed him for this project. He says that Gamergate was part of a tapestry of people losing trust, and I think that that's true. So my job, I guess, is to correct the story on this and put out the truth of what happened and try to include a variety of perspectives. I think there's value in that. I don't think that anyone really has tried to do that so far. I mean, people have tried, like Koretsky, I guess, has tried when he hosted Airplay, but there hasn't really been a successful um, like compendium of what happened during Gamergate. And I think that
And is yours? Is your compendium this a multi-volume series you have? Is that a success? I mean, you've written it already, or are you still writing it?
the first volume is done, and the interviews for all the other ones are mostly completed. There's still a few stragglers, but yeah, basically it's done except for some of the later volumes need to be transcribed into book format still. But the first
Okay.
volume's completely finished, yeah. And is it successful? I don't know. I mean, well, one, I don't know if the Kickstarter is going to succeed or not, right? I'm like 10% of the way there, so hopefully I'll cross the finish line. But also, I'm open to other people doing research and work in this area, and there's things could be things that I missed. I think that one area, one challenge, and maybe I shouldn't say this publicly, but I think that one area that is potentially worth exploring is the sort of culture war aspect of it for a couple of reasons. Like one of which is that I haven't focused on that too much in this project, and then two, it is interesting because like so there's my research and my findings that show that for the vast majority of the people involved that I've interviewed at least, right, that it's about ethics in games journalism. Um, but like what do I make of the culture war aspect or angle of it? I do ask people about it in the book series, but I don't have enough data collated to really determine what other people think yet. But like if you go on like Kotaku in action, for instance, right? I think it's safe to, and I'm doing an Ask Me Anything topic there in a few days, so that'll be great. Submit top questions ahead of time for that if you want. But like Kotaku in Action today is more of like an anti social justice warrior quote unquote subreddit, I think you'd say. Are you familiar with them at all?
I know who Kotaku is. I don't know about Kotaku in action.
Okay, it's a subreddit. It was one of the big Gamergate communities back during GG. It's still around,
Okay.
still a pretty big active community. They've blown up in size since then. They've got like 156,000 subscribers. But they've moved in more of like an anti-SJW direction over the years, and like finding out like why that is. There's like various hypotheses. I think would be interesting to like
Well, what's
examine and
your idea?
explore.
Why do you think it has?
I think like there's multiple different things. I think one, a bunch of the people involved with Gamergate who were on Kotaku in Action, some of them quit over the years, including like me. I quit Kotaku in Action briefly over because I felt as though the subreddit was going in a direction I didn't want to follow in. I felt that they were becoming way too more like right wing, which is fine. But like I felt like they're becoming more. Yeah, I personally didn't like the way they were going with it, and they were leaning more into that anti-SJW kind of stuff. So part of it's because like people leaving, but then also I think part of it too is because they brought in a bunch of new people. Like, um, if you look at the numbers of their subreddit, uh, it went from like 30,000 people or 40,000 people like during the height of Gamergate to 156,000 now. And part of that's because a lot of other communities have been banned. And so I think a lot of it has been people Kotaku Action setting themselves up as like a refugee camp kind of for people from other communities, like the other inaction communities that got banned,
Okay. Yeah.
and fat people hate that got banned because they were one of the few subreddits that was like hardcore in favor of free speech on Reddit, essentially, and so they attracted a lot of new people who came in, and also
Okay.
too, I think a lot of people had like negative interactions
Maybe
with
maybe
social
this
justice
we
people.
should have yeah, maybe we should have started with this question, right?
Hmm.
Though I don't know if it's a necessary question given my audience, but I'll ask it anyway. Oh, what was Gamergate?
It was a
What
movement
are
for
we even talking about?
ethics in games
Right?
journalism from 2014 to around 2018.
Okay. Why does this matter? Why are you doing a book on this, right? Like who cares?
Because one, it always bothered me that I saw because I was part of this, right? So I was involved in the movement. Organized the St. Louis meetups. I was never really happy with how the narrative on this kind of spun out of control, and then now we're
What
being
okay,
blamed for.
so the narrative spun out of control. What is the narrative and when did it spin out of control?
I don't know when exactly. I don't think it was like a single moment. But the narrative, I guess, would be this perception that the Gamergate movement supported. Like, there's multiple different narratives depending on who you ask. I guess like the one that I was bothered by most of all, I guess, was this sort of idea that like no, the people involved they weren't genuine in their beliefs, that they were actually using ethics or censorship or artistic freedom as covers so that they could harass women. I don't think this was true. I didn't think this was true at the time. I try to approach the topic neutrally and in how I investigated it now. Obviously, I have my biases, but um, yeah, I don't think this narrative was true, and I think it's unfortunate that all of these people involved, most of whom I think were pretty decent people, some of whom weren't, got smeared as being
Who
misogynistic harassers.
Sure. Who did you actually talk to about this? When you talk about the big players in Gamergate, who so two questions. One, who were the big players, okay? The people who were driving this on both sides. Like if you had to name the top 3 on both sides, who would they be? And then two, who do you have in your book? Who did you talk to, at least in the first volume, that people can go and read if they want to? And kind of like yeah, let's start there. Let's go with that.
Okay, so I guess the big players, it's difficult to say because one, the pro gamer gate, I know it's this answer, right? They preferred to go by, we don't have any leaders, we don't believe in that sort of thing, right? But realistically, I guess if you had to pick like people who are big players, I don't know if you can limit it to three. It was a really big phenomenon. And there's different camps. But I guess you'd have to say like Total Biscuit would be a big one, right, on the Pro GG side. But also depends on what time period you're talking about too, because people would come and go. So like if you're talking about like 2014, it's probably like Total Biscuit, Internet Aristocrat, Sargon, Christina Hoff Summers. Uh, there's a bunch of other people you can name as well. And then like on the anti-Gamergate side, you'd have someone like Nita Sarkeesian or Zoe Quinn or Brianna Wu. But like the anti-Gamergate people, like a lot of them wouldn't identify themselves as being part of a movement. Like you're friends with Brianna. I don't think that she would be like, oh, I was an anti-gamer. She wouldn't like self-describe herself that way. I imagine in most cases, right? Though she did moderate
Uh
Gamergazi, so
Look,
maybe she would.
I Brianna Wu of Gamergate era might have, but Brianna Wu now, I don't know, right? Like
Yeah.
she's moderated a lot of her positions, so hard to say. You're the one that interviewed all these people, right? What do you think, right?
So I didn't interview Brianna Wu, but let's see. I guess I would say that Anita Sarkeesian, Brianna Wu, Zoe Quinn, like sort of like the bigger name, like anti-Gamergate people. Though there's others too that you could name off as well, like Arthur Chu, Ian Miles Chung, some others. But who did I interview from Volume One? That unfortunately none of those people I've interviewed in Volume One. Uh, so I
Well,
have
who did you
interviewed
talk to and why are they interesting? Why should we care what they have to
for
say?
Volume One or
Go.
for the full project.
For the volume one.
Oh, for
Go
Volume
ahead.
One. All right, Volume One. Um, I interviewed artist Lisa M. She organized the Atlanta meetups for GamerGate. She was also involved with GamerGate, the animated series, which is this unfinished, unreleased cartoon to document the sort of to sort of tell the story of GamerGate,
It's not
inspired by.
finished and it's not released.
Yeah, it's not released. The first volume's the first not volume. The first episode's done from what I hear. They just it's
Well,
never been published. So someone it's on someone's hard drive floating around out there. So
great.
yeah. So I interviewed her.
Yeah.
She's also done a lot of the art for Vivian James, the GamerGate mascot. I've interviewed Game Diviner for Volume One. He was at SPG Airplay at the big conference we hosted. He also good guy, interesting, funny guy. Had kind of a meltdown when he left GamerGate. he there's this. Maybe I should say stuff like this, but he there's this. If you ever get a chance to watch Aaron Pabon, he's the games journalist named Aaron Pabon with the Games Journalism Network. There's a video of him interviewing Game Diviner, and this was during a period of time in GamerGate when Game Diviner was working with the QQ um, and some other people to try and end GamerGate. So he was part of this faction within GamerGate basically that wanted GamerGate to end after Airplay, which was this big conference we hosted. They felt as though they were worried the movement would get hijacked, and they also felt that like, a lot of people were wanting to take it in different directions. And they were like, well, look, we all have different ideas about where we want this to go. Why don't we uh, end GamerGate and have like one final big victory lap after Airplay? So he was working on trying to get that and set up that happening behind the scenes, talking with people, trying to get buy-in support and stuff. And that plan died in part because I killed it, but some other people were opposed to it as well. And uh, he went on this show, Games Journalism Network, and he was interviewed by Aaron Pabon, and he had this mental breakdown. And it's this hilarious like lol cow moment. He's a
What do you
great guy.
mean mental breakdown? Give us an
he
example.
he
Come on.
rips off like his like jacket. And he's like, I am GamerGate, and it's just like this
Oh,
insane.
very Tom Cruisey on Oprah kind of
Yeah.
thing.
But no,
Okay,
I mean,
fair
I
enough.
don't want to.
Yeah.
I don't want people to only remember him because of that. But like, yeah, I've included his voice as well. Also, Oron Dark Lord, he moderated one of the debate subreddits, GG Discussion, where I'm doing an Ask Me Anything as well, and Kotaku in Action, he moderated them. Also, Alan Harris, he organized the Texas meetups for GamerGate. And he says that GamerGate helped him come out of his shell and that helped him make friends. So it was a good, positive experience for him. That was great. I've also interviewed Hasio, and he describes himself as a self-described background character in GamerGate for Volume One. Uh,
Background character. What does that mean?
he not really a big major high-profile player, but he was there,
Huh?
kind of watching things fly on the wall,
Did
and
you
some other people.
yeah, I think you were on my show a couple times for the Gamergate 2 stuff, right? What do we think about the situation now? Now you have people like Grums and you have others, Cabraxis,
Cabrutus.
whatever. Then you have people like the Sweet Baby Inc. and things like that. How come that never really became anything, right? Like I know a lot of people were talking at the time, oh, it's the next Gamergate, et cetera, et cetera. It was we did a couple shows on it and that then it kind of just stopped.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or
I
or
don't.
did it? Or did it stop? Maybe I'm just it
Well,
all went underground. I don't know. Right,
it
go ahead.
depends
What's
on
your
like what you
perspective?
mean. Like, I guess I don't think there is a Gamergate 2. I don't think calling it that's like very accurate. The people involved with Gamergate that I've interviewed, at least, they don't seem to think it's mostly accurate either. Um, I actually asked people this question on my optional survey. Only about like 33% of people involved with Gamergate on the Pro GG side would call it Gamergate 2. But why didn't it blow up? I don't know if there was like a big grassroots like support there for it. They also didn't like try to make it like a movement necessarily. Um, I think that like some
I don't know
people,
about that. I see
yeah,
them trying to drive this all
there's
the
some people
time.
who
They were
were
trying to
for
use
sure.
hashtags. They were trying to use these lists and stuff. It was crazy. But go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if um I don't know if like it's still like quote unquote active. I think that there is like a anti SJW or anti woke, if you want to call it that, like pushback in the games industry for sure. Um, and some of those people involved like call themselves Gamergate too. But I don't know why it never really took off. I don't think there was like a big like grassroots level support though. I think that it was mostly like promoted by like YouTubers and by people in like the games press actually, like the Guardian, writing articles about it, rather than there being like an organic like swelling of a movement. But some people might disagree with you on that too. Like Oron Darklord, who I interviewed, he might disagree with that actually,
Maybe.
because he views
Uh
himself as being like a GamerGate 2 person.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
What what do you think has been the kind of like final result of Gamergate? What if anything did it accomplish? And how are games and games journalism and culture different today because of Gamersgate than
That's
it
a
would have been without?
that's a big question. Maybe I should open my notepad up.
Pick one, right? You can start. How
All
do
right.
you eat an elephant one bite at a time? Just start with the one
So
thing. Let's see.
ethics, yeah, I think ethics in game journalism has gotten a bit better. I think that they've gotten better about disclosure. I think there was a problem before Gamergate and in the early days of Gamergate of this very incestuous nature between developers and journalists, and I think that's gotten maybe a little bit better, or at least if it hasn't, I haven't necessarily noticed. I think that also the FTC requiring disclosure for affiliate links and sponsorships, basically. I think that that's actually a really positive step in the right direction.
Was that a result of Gamergate?
I don't know, maybe we had Operation Ultraviolet Light where we contacted the FTC, but like the FTC is a large organization responsive to millions of uh, customers across the country. So
Sure.
did we have really that much of an impact with those letters?
I
I
don't
don't know.
know. You're the one that wrote the book on the subject. That's what I'm asking
Well, yeah,
you.
yeah, I did. I don't know because they tried and they were successful. So I guess there's that. But I wouldn't like. I don't know if like government regulators deciding to take action is like a Gamergate thing, even if Gamergate people advocated for that.
Okay, fair enough. Um, that's one with the ethics in gaming. So you think that it's
Yeah,
slightly better now
and the
because of
the
some of the rules
biggest
and such.
improvement though I think is
Yes.
actually people like you and me, Wick. It's the rise of independent creators, podcasts, streamers, YouTubers, all these different people covering the gaming scene. Now this
Is that
existed 10
because
years
of
ago.
Gamergate?
No, that's not because of Gamergate. But I think that that's one thing that's probably really improved games journalism is that you can just go to the games journalists you like um, and support independent creators. There's that greater diversity. I think that's good.
I, uh, See, I would be more willing to think that the FTC regulation was a result of that of Gamergate than I am to say that independent media is a result of
No, yeah,
Gamergate. I just
sure,
don't think
that's
it
not a
is.
Gamergate thing, but yeah, no, for sure, 1,000%. But that is something that's game journalism. Games journalism's gotten better as a result of that diversity, I would say.
Fair
But
enough.
that's not a Gamergate specific thing. Yes, correct.
Well, I guess my question is, what specifically has Gamergate done to the culture, to the games, right? If anything, or was it just a nothing burger that nothing came of it and it was just
I think it
nothing
raised
happened?
awareness about the issues of corruption in games journalism. I think also having like different conversations sparked, like the conferences that were hosted, and creating positive incentives like the Kunkel Awards, which was because of Gamergate. The Kunkel Awards are the Society of Professional Journalists Awards for excellence in gaming journalism, basically trying to
Mm.
create positive incentives for games journalists to do a good job. So I think that that's like a positive development,
Oh,
step in the right direction.
cool.
And also too, I think they cost Gawker a lot of money. Which Gawker themselves say that that Gamergate cost them 7 figures supposedly. We don't know the exact amount, but
Damn.
that's what one of their executives claimed.
I mean, I guess like you got that CEO corporation, you cost them some money. Fair enough. Um, do you think games in general, the game industry. This is a little bit of a separate question from Gamergate, but I'm curious what your answer is. How is the games industry today in a healthy space? Why or why not?
So I'm not an expert on the games industry. I know that there have reportedly been some problems recently with layoffs, for instance. And obviously, my heart goes out to people who've lost their jobs and stuff because of that. Um, as for, there's been some major flops too, right? There's been Concord, Dustborn. People have been pointing those out.
Wasn't like was it Concord or Despot? One of those cost like 400 million to develop, reportedly.
I would assume Concord. I think that was the bigger game, but I'm
Hmm.
not don't know a huge amount about
400.
this.
Gang, I just wanted you to take that for a minute and I want you to internalize that. $400 million. So 4 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 and the game flopped. First of all, how does one spend that much money? to develop a game. Maybe I'm just not educated on the process, right? But how does one spend $400 million to make a single game? Explain it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not a developer. But I don't know.
You're not
I want
helpful.
I want the games. I know I'm not. I'm see the thing is that the thing is that the more you learn about Gamergate, the more boring it becomes because you realize, oh, it was just about ethics and games journalism. Fuck. No, but no, the games industry. I hope it does well, obviously. But I don't know. I mean,
Fair enough, I guess.
yeah.
What are some of the what are some of the obstacles that you think that exist within gaming culture today? Like um if you had a nephew, a kid, a son, a daughter, whatever, a niece trying to get into gaming and the gaming culture, right? What are some of the things you'd tell them?
I would tell them
Warn
that,
them
especially if it's a niece, right? A niece or a daughter, I'd be like, look, there's a lot of terrible far right misogynists out there. They hate women. They want to drive them out of the games industry.
does gaming
It's
does the gaming culture have a misogyny problem for real?
I don't know. I think there are
Well, you're the one telling your niece that, right? So are
I'm
you lying to
kidding.
your niece?
I don't know if because like that's not like I wouldn't be as like a GamerGate topic either necessarily. But like I hope not. I hope it doesn't. I think that the vast majority of people who play video games are just normal people who don't engage in sexist behavior and conduct. I think that there probably are some who do for sure. I think that that's unfortunate, uncouth conduct that should be criticized. But I don't think that it's especially common like in games. Like, I don't think that like the gaming industry is like uniquely misogynistic or anything like that. But like
Fair
all
enough.
aspects of society, there are misogynistic people who exist, and I think that we should have conversations about issues that women face in the gaming industry, whether it's sexual harassment at conventions or in online games or whatever it happens to be.
Okay, that's fair. What do you think that the gaming industry, where do you think it could improve from here? So, in your opinion, what are some things that the gaming industry and even games journalism within that industry could do in order to be better, if
Hmm.
anything?
I don't know. I guess there's a few things, right? One would be like microtransactions. I think that this has probably gotten a little bit out of hand. This sort of everything has to seems like it has to have microtransactions now, and has to have battle passes. And I don't, as a consumer, if it's just for cosmetic stuff, I don't really care. But if you're going to add it for non-cosmetic stuff, then I would take issue with that. But also, like people will say too that like a lot of these games are going to be funded through these mechanisms. So if it's a choice between it has this monetization structure that I don't like versus I don't have the game at all, that's something that I don't know. And in theory, right, a developer could use the incoming revenue to support different new
Mhm.
developments and innovations in the game,
Hmm.
improvements to the game.
Um, uh, look, I guess at this point, right? Sell your book to my audience, right? You're here to do that, right? You're here to promote it.
Right, true. I guess
Go
I am.
ahead, sell it, baby.
All right, so a lot of people on the internet are going to tell you a lot about Gamergate. A lot of them are going to be wrong, and that doesn't even necessarily wrong on purpose, or perhaps just wrong because there's a lot of misinformation out there about the topic. A lot of people are only going to tell you what fits their side of the story, what fits their narrative. I try to avoid doing that to some extent, at least. And yeah, if you want to learn more about Gamergate, learn about the true history of what happened, why everything transpired, what the people involved think. I've interviewed over 70 plus people, and they've got a lot of stories to tell. And I think they're stories that are worth hearing. I think there's lessons to be learned about a lot of different things, about ethics, about life, about video game history, about the culture war too, about censorship, about free speech, about what happens
What
when you try to
life
suppress.
lesson? Sure. What life lesson should I take from Gamergate?
That ethics are important, and that you should probably be ethical. But I think you do a pretty good job of that already, Wick, for the most part. So
Thank you. I try. I mean, like I just a dude. Okay. If people want to buy your book, where can they? Or they want to support your Kickstarter you got going, where can they do that?
yeah, right now, Kickstarter.com, or actually, you go to GamerGateBook.com. GamerGateBook.com. Purchased the domain; it'll redirect you to the Kickstarter. or you can go on Kickstarter and search the people of Gamergate.
I'm putting links in my chat, gang. So if you're on YouTube or you're on Twitch, I'll put a link. If you want to support the guy, please click
Yeah,
the link. Go
and
ahead.
it will be available on Amazon after the Kickstarter period. So sometime early 2025, it'll be there. If you want to learn more about my work, you can check out my channel. Or you can read the Kickstarter description. There's a very detailed description about the work I've done. Also, I'm doing Ask Me Anything topics on a bunch of different communities coming up too. That's also listed on the Kickstarter page.
Okay, gang. Uh, is there anything else you wanted to cover while you're here that we haven't?
Uh, well, I don't know. What else do you want to talk about?
I'm just here, man. Like, you wanted to talk about this. I'm here to ask you questions. I'm
Yeah,
here
this
to,
is.
but I mean, like the a lot of it is like you're like, oh, I don't know, and that's fair. But
Well, yeah. Sorry. It's just like So one thing that you've noticed, perhaps, and as a content creator, this
okay,
is
go ahead.
frustrating, is that when you when you try to be like honest about stuff, you oftentimes don't have very
Sure.
much to say because there's a lot of topics that you don't have a great deal of knowledge about, and as a content creator, you still have to, as a person, as a citizen, you have to still have to talk about complex topics and have an opinion to some extent. But you shouldn't be married
Hmm.
to those ideas. And maybe one lesson I've taken away is that I've been a little too, I guess, cautious to try and weigh in on things, and maybe I should be less so.
That's up to you, man. Thank you for
Mhm.
coming on. Thank you for talking to me, and I appreciate it. And Gamergate, I wasn't in the Gamergate wars. I'm not a veteran of that. I was busy touching grass, and I didn't really pay attention to any of it. So it has been interesting seeing how it has shaped people's opinions and how visceral a reaction people have when you even bring up Gamergate in these communities, and people will draw battle lines and these things. So that's been very interesting to me, and I appreciate you being willing to come on my show, to be willing to explain what you can, and to talk about it. So thank you for that. Where can people find you if they want to find you?
GamerGateBook.com is like the main thing I'm promoting right now for the Kickstarter, but also Tachyon Blue on YouTube, Twitch, Kick, and Twitter. But Wick, I want to ask you,
Go ahead.
why do you think that is? Why do you think that when you hear that? Because I'm sure you've seen it too, especially in these online streamer spaces, right? The term comes up, and it's a very divergent.
Visceral reactions,
Yes.
it's a very divisive as a topic. I think it's because it was um and again, please, I'm going to qualify this. I wasn't involved in Gamergate. I'm just giving my opinion here. From what I've seen, people have very strong feelings. They were involved in it in a way like that. A lot of things you read about, you're just not involved in it, right? So a lot of people consider themselves veterans of this
Hmm.
on either side or the other. They fought in the Gamergate wars, right? And so they have very strong opinions. They have personal skin in the game in here, and it affected them. And that's obviously going to rile up emotions that are stronger than if it's something you merely observed. So I think the fact that people participated in it is what is driving the big um, divisiveness. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that that's probably fair.
Let me. I got a. My audience has a question for you, and I'll ask this. This is from Cacophonies. So let me ask you this. What is your view on Meadowcar? Meadowcar? Meadow?
Oh,
Is it?
Mr. Medicare, he's a YouTuber. He was involved with GamerGate actually. He went by the name Internet Aristocrat back then. He's gone by like a bunch of different names over the years.
Okay.
Um, but he's a big YouTuber. I'm surprised you'll probably run into him at some point, Wick.
I've heard the name on occasion. I've never talked to him. What again though? What's your opinion on the guy?
I don't really have a very strong opinion of him. I guess I generally like him. I invited him to participate in the project. I sent him a message on Facebook. He doesn't have his contact information very easily available. He never got back to me, unfortunately, so I didn't interview him. But I guess I have a generally positive opinion of him. When he was Internet Aristocrat, I maybe more of I didn't. He was out of GamerGate by the time I got involved, right? So I got involved with GamerGate in spring 2015. He quit GamerGate, I believe, in November 2014. So he was already gone by the time I got involved. But I think his videos were really high quality. They were entertaining videos. So yeah, he was a good content creator, I guess. Fun guy. I don't really know him personally, But yeah, seems cool, I guess.
And what was the second question you had, Cacophony? Let me scroll back up. So the second question, what is your opinion on at what point Gamergate shifted from being legitimate to a grift?
I don't know if there was like a point. Like I don't think that Gamergate like by and large like shifted into being a grift. I think that unfortunately, as time went on, a lot of people were coming in, like YouTubers, for instance, and other people who were wanting to make a quick buck. Right? You had like Based Gamer, this website that Jenny Barrage was creating that never ended up materializing. People were raising money for stuff like this. Airplay 2, a sequel to the Airplay convention. That wasn't like a grift, I don't think. I actually donated money to that and got a refund. Uh, but I think there's a lot of people involved who, one, you had people who had like legitimate projects and were passionate about it. Like I think Airplay 2 was like a legitimate project that just the guys were incompetent. The guy basically even admits he was incompetent. Where people tried to do something good, they took people's money and they failed. They were incompetent people. And then you also have other people too who were raising money for like something like Based Gamer, where there's a lot of questions about where that money went. That's like maybe I don't know. I'm not going to accuse the Jenny of being a scammer, but like you have situations like that too. So I don't think it was like a point where like it became a grift. I just think that as time went on, more and more people were brought into it. They became aware of it, and they thought, hey, look, I've got this project. Maybe it's a legitimate thing they're really trying to do, or maybe it's just a scam from the beginning. But people have stuff that they want to try and raise money for, and some people get burned bad on that. I think it's unfortunate. I'm not going to do that with my people, the people who donate to my Kickstarter.
Got you.
So yeah.
Well, this is from Nair Socks. How was the experience overall of making a book? Did anything exceed your expectations, like difficulty, writer's block, time issues, etc.?
Yeah. So because of the process I used, it's really unique because I'm having the conversation like I'm having with you right now. But I'm transcribing that conversation into written format. So I don't have to deal with like writer's block in that sense, except for Tachyon's take, the final chapter of each volume. Now, as for like
Okay, what's your take? What's your take? Like, what's your conclusion?
well, I'm doing one different one on each different topic. So for volume one, it's games journalism. I think that games journalism had a problem during GamerGate. I think it's gotten a bit better since then. And I think that the GamerGate community they engaged in certain tactics that I thought were
So
effective, and I
did
point that out.
Gamergate win?
Uh, the people involved seem to think so, but they seem to think
Oh,
so in 2015 as well too. So
fair enough.
yeah,
Fair
so I
enough.
think I think so, but everyone thinks they won, right? So.
Is your coverage of Matt Jarbo positive or negative?
You could say quite negative. Actually, I don't really talk about him too much in the project. Um, I invited him to be interviewed. He never got back to me on that, which is not a big shock. I've criticized him publicly. He actually spread misinformation about the Androdol, one of the people I've interviewed. He the Androdol was accused of being a PDF file, basically falsely, by this guy on Reddit, who basically admitted later on that it was false. Ended up getting his account banned on Reddit, and Matt Jarbo, the Surfs, and basically those two shows spread misinformation claiming that he's a pedophile, a PDF file, when this is not true. And Matt even knows the guy. He's been on Matt's been on the guy's show before in the past during Gamergate, and Matt still called him a like a still heavily implied in his show that he was a PDF file. So I've actually done a video criticizing Matt Jarbo over this.
Damn.
Yeah.
Strong feelings, I guess.
I mean, I don't care, but he shouldn't lie to people.
No, I'm no that
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying is like
Oh yeah, for
people
him.
are
Yeah.
strong
Yeah.
enough to so Audacity is a question. I think this will be the last question for the night. What or who do you consider the main launch point for Gamergate? What was the inciting incident?
Hmm. That's a tough question to answer too, because different people have different definitions. Some people would say that it was the Zoe post, which was Aaron Joni's blog post about his ex-girlfriend cheating on him with Nathan Grayson of Kotaku. Some people would say it was that. Other people would say that it was August 27th, which was when the hashtag was first used by Adam Baldwin. And then other people would say it was the Gamers Are Dead articles on August 28th. I think that like realistically, it's probably like a mix of the three, right? You have the conversation sort of starting about these sort of topics with the Zoe post, and then I think that over the next 2.5 weeks, you have really a poor response, I think, from the games press. You have some people who are engaging in harassment, right, against other people, but then you also have some people too that are engaging in harassment on both sides, actually, really, against people. Um, and then you also have the games press refusing to reform. You have some people on Twitter saying a lot of stupid shit, insulting people who are asking questions about this. You have censorship, and then you have the Gamers Are Dead articles, which I think is really what's like started Gamergate more or less. The Gamers Are Dead articles. I think that everything up until that point, like there was still a chance to try and end this with like a just some reforms, slap some people on the wrist, and call it a day. But I think that them releasing those articles all at the same time, I think, is really what blew it up. The point of no return, kind of.
The then it was off to the races, gang. Well, thank you, Tachyon, for coming on my show. Your link, gang, if you want to find him, I linked his channel in my YouTube description, and I have posted his Kickstarter in the chat. I will do so again. Please, if this is something you are interested in, there you go. You can get the book, read it if that's what you're interested in. By all means, thank you for being on here. Any final words?
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Wick. It's great to talk to you again, and hope you have a great Christmas. Your audience
Oh,
too.
Merry Christmas to you. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.